So right now I just so happen to be in the Cotswolds, which is a area in England which is kind of mountainous and has very distinctive, quaint little British villages and nice towns and looks cute. Very popular with hikers. Not only does it have nice little hiking trails, but it also has over 6,000 years worth of history. So of course I took that as an opportunity to go to a nearby site and have a look. You're going to have to excuse the difference in sound throughout some of these clips because I was a silly sausage and forgot to plug in the microphone sometimes, so that was good. I'm currently on Cleeve Hill, which is one of the, if not the highest point in the Cotswolds, and has over 4,500 years worth of history. This hill is protected by a government as part of their secluded ancient monuments sites. Behind me is one of two of the hill's potential Iron Age camps or forts, which was made up of a series of ramparts and ditches, or cross and dike ditches, which has now been turned into a massive golf course. And these date between about 600 to 800 BC. There are several Bronze Age and Iron Age sites around this hill, most of which have been unexcavated. I'm pretty sure if you look at this, that's what looks to be like some sort of Bronze Age wall, but I may also be wrong about that. Round barrows were actually recorded on this hill but disappeared by at least 1964, unfortunately, and several pieces of Iron Age pottery were found in 1903. But Iron Age architecture on Cleeve Hill is not what I came here to show you. I came here to show you this. This is Belas Knap, a Cotswold 7 cairn or long barrow that is located near Cleeve's Hill. It was constructed in 3000 BC and was in use for over 1,000 years. And it's really exciting. I'm actually so excited to be here. I've never been to a proper big long barrow before, so. The long barrow is 174 foot long, 60 foot wide at its widest point, and 14 metres tall, and has 4 burial chambers running in the west and east sides and one in the south. Now the Cotswolds has over 100 Cotswold 7 cairns or burial sites, and this in fact is probably one of the best ones, so I was quite lucky. So right now I'm inside the eastern burial chamber, which is very exciting. There were 12 burials found in this particular chamber. There have been 3 excavations in total at this site, and altogether potentially the remains of 38 individuals buried over a 1,000-year period have been found in this long barrow. But about 6 or 7 of those were excavated in the Victorian era, so they weren't as well documented. And these were in fact found behind the false entrance. Altogether there were 2 males, 2 females in the southeast, 14 in the west, and this was possibly the oldest chamber, and 1 in the south. So once again, because I'm unorganised, I am filming this video in bits, so I am back home. So in the Victorian excavations between 1863 to 1865, 5 bodies were found, mostly of kids between 6 months to 8 years old, and the skull of a male. In addition to this, a lot of pig and horse bones and pottery fragments were found, as well as a flint blade, of course. How could you go and excavate one of these burial mounds without finding some stone tools? So this is the north side entrance, which was purposely blocked off. They don't exactly know why. It may be to stop robbers, or it might have been seen as like a spiritual door through which the living and the dead could commune, but it's probably the nicest entrance way into the actual burial mound. People don't quite know what Belas Knap means, but some have thought that Belas comes from Belus in Latin, which means beautiful, and that means hill in Old English, but who knows. The site also appears to have at least been accessible about 2,000 years ago, because some Romano-British pottery sherds were found inside too, which is quite fun. Also, going with the Neolithic theme, there was a stone circle, like a little ring of stones found at the centre of the mound, which I just love. I love a good stone circle. It really brings everything together, you know. The circle of life, that was probably it, to be fair. Good thinking. Now, in the Victorian excavation, a distinction between the skull shapes was first identified. So they noted that the Neolithic skulls were a lot longer and narrower, and the Bronze Age skulls were rounded like their barrows, which is where one of the sayings comes from, which I can't remember properly, but it goes something like long barrow, long skull, round barrow, round skull. Now, if we look at the construction of Belas Knap, like all other 7 Cotswolds cairns, it was made in a trapezoid type shape, which is a common theme that runs throughout basically all of them. The walls of the chambers were dry stone walled, as you can see. The top was actually added on in the 60s, as I will later explain. It was not dry stone walled, that was likely just roofed with ginormous stone slabs, and then obviously on top of that they put the great mound of earth and make it look all pretty and lovely and pristine. Inside, as you can see, there are also big stone slabs that line the walls of the chambers, and you know, that's just there for longevity. Don't know what the thinking behind that was, probably very structural. And this mixture of dry stone walling, putting great structural stone slabs around the chambers and on the roof, and then putting the mounds of earth on top of that, is the general pattern that most Neolithic people followed when they were building structures like cairns. We actually spoke to a couple of maintenance men who were there chopping the grass and digging out the stone flooring of one of the burial chambers, who said that this was their favourite particular burial, and had also said about how the site itself had to be reconcreted over in the 60s because the roof began to fall in. Several of these sites have to be re-dry stone walled inside because that is the original way that they were built. However, as many school kids go to these burial mounds, they tend to pull out the stones, as do tourists, and therefore they fall, unfortunately. I took these videos from another hill that I climbed up called the Belt, which overlooks what previously was the Severn River Valley and is right at the edge of the Cotswolds. You can see the Malverns to the, the east. And if we look over in this field, we can even see remains from the medieval to the Middle Ages in the form of a ridge and furrow field system, which is evident to this day, which essentially meant that people were given strips of land instead of a whole field to farm on, because people did not have enough land at the time, apparently. I also visited Tewkesbury Abbey because that happened to be in the area, which was quite nice. If you're ever there, give it a little visit. And the whole point of this video, I think, was to say that, especially if you're in the countryside or if you're in the city, there's probably a lot of history around you, so go and give it a visit, go and see what's about, and it will probably be good if you like history. I mean, you might not. When my auntie and uncle told me about Belas Knap, they literally described it as a mound with some holes in it, so depends what your interests are, but you know, give the sites a go.